Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is actually an amazing thread on X that I seen yesterday, which tells us how corrupt the BBC is with its coverage of Gaza. Now, I was alerted to it by this account on Twitter, David Collier, who I would recommend you follow. He's an award-winning investigative journalist, and he's got over 200,000 followers on X, Twitter. But yesterday, he put this thread out, which is, this one here. Now, I'll just make this a bit bigger. So now, it's lots of noise about the latest BBC propaganda documentary on Gaza airing BBC tonight. It relied on two cameramen that BBC have employed in Gaza. Here is one of them saluting the October the 7th massacre. Why does our license fee fund terrorist supporters? Now, let me just get... We've said that the BBC News has become a propaganda tool for Hamas. Where is the proof? Sit down and hold tight, and points to the thread. So let me just talk you through this because it's absolutely crazy stuff. So the first thing he says is, we need to talk about BBC documentary run last night, The Children Surviving the Gaza War. Co-producer was a Palestinian activist, and one of the cameramen the BBC had hired in Gaza had saluted October 7th. Now, to be fair, I don't talk Arabic, so I'll take it from him, and the translation, it says something about the flood, and seems to be quite happy about it. So that's one of the cameramen who they used for the filming of it. But it gets worse, far worse. A lot of content was clearly staged, and the star of the show was a young Gazan boy called Abdullah. Abdullah is from one of the Gaza's affluent families and narrates the hour-long documentary. Now, I'm not going to click on this and get the BBC all over me for using their stuff in a video, but I will use small clips and small amounts just to give you a feel for it. This year, now we need to go back to Channel 4's news piece from November 2030. We are introduced to a young lad called Abdullah, the same Abdullah as the BBC used. Channel 4 give his name as Abdullah Abu Shamala and introduce us to his father. Now, I'll just make this bigger so you can see it properly, and we'll watch a short clip.
Back in Khan Yunis, Abdullah and his father, also members of the extended Abu Shamala family, wander through the destruction in the neighborhood. Who wouldn't be terrified living here?
We try to calm ourselves down with words like, I'm still young and I have future, and I still have a future to do, and I don't want to die. I repeat these words constantly to calm myself down. I'm basically lying to myself.
The first thing I'd noticed there is the young kid speaking decent English. And I can't imagine many kids in Gaza, any normal kids, are that well versed in English. So I found that a bit bizarre. And then David goes on, but here is where it gets interesting. That is not his name, and the man in the video is not his father. Someone had lied to Channel 4. In fact, the name of the man playing the father in the video is Kali Ab Shamala. And here is that man, right? And it gets weirder. He is a director of PFLP, linked anti-Israel propaganda NGO called Al-Damir. This full-time activist was no doubt on site orchestrating whatever nonsense Channel 4 was being fed. They believe any crap it included pretending to be Abdullah's father. The two people were related though. I searched Facebook and found Shamala posting about his nephew. It's a video from 2022. There you go. My nephew, Abdullah, and he gives his surname. Creates comparisons and double standards in treatment of international community in Palestine situation and the war between the Ukraine and Russia. So the young kid that they used was this guy's nephew. This guy being a director or a full-time activist for an NGO called Al Damir. And with that name, I could then dig further. I found a post that connected Shamala and the Laizuri clans. It was likely now I had Abdullah's father, Ayam al-Azuri. Okay? Now, so you've got his uncle, you've got his dad, and he's got my brother-in-law and friend Khalib Ab Shamala and Kali Ab Shamala, right? And sure enough, on Ayman's timeline were plenty of references to his son Abdullah, who he calls Abud. And when things start to get very clear, because Abdullah, the BBC's narrator, father, is an official in the Hamas government. He currently holds the position of Deputy Minister of Agriculture, but has held official positions in education and planning. So, what BBC have done is they've used a Hamas guy's son to be this unfortunate little kid in Gaza for a 1-hour documentary. His father, he is the father of Abdullah, the person who the BBC let demonise Israel for 60 minutes and an event in full Hamas gear. Let me just make that bigger. So, let me see if I can zoom in on that. There you go. So that's Abdullah's dad. Front table at some Hamas event, which is nice. And then I'll come out of that. The naivety, stupidity and arrogance of our media has allowed Palestinian propagandists to turn their legacy channels into foolish outlets blindly spouting Hamas lies 24/7. Here is a post from Abdullah's father praising Hamas terrorists who murdered 4 Israelis in June 2023. And there's his post there. The nation gives victory veins. May God have mercy on the martyrs. It's just mental, isn't it? How they've just managed to not find out who they've got in front of a camera. So, in Gaza, you do not achieve a position of power, head of hospital or head of anything, unless your clan has factional weight. The same is true here. Ibrahim al-Yazuri was a founder of Hamas alongside Sheikh Yassin. In February 11, 2021, Ibrahim al-Yazuri died of coronavirus. So this is a guy that was a founder of Hamas. And sure enough, on February 11th, 2021, the father of a BBC narrator posted a family mourning message for a founder of Hamas terrorist group. A few days before this, he had explicitly called him the head of the clan family, which means both Ayam and his son are 100% Hamas royalty. The two photographers followed these children around for months. They absolutely knew who he was. Well, you kind of would, because you would think they would drop them off, pick them up and all that sort of stuff. How did the BBC let the son of a Hamas minister walk around looking for sympathy and demonising Israel for an hour in a BBC documentary? The BBC is publishing Hamas propaganda. We have the proof now. There is more detail and a few extra pieces as well here in the links to his article. And this is a link to his website, which I'll just put this up actually. So there you go, David Collier, investigative journalist at david-collier.com if any of you want to visit that. And please, if you can, this work is not easy, please support my hard-hitting and unique research, help me fight back, subscribe on X, or support his Patreon, which is patreon.com/David Collier, blah, blah, blah. So what I would suggest you do, as a minimum, is go and support this guy on his X account, which seems to be his social media of preference, and that's it there, David Collier. And I'll just make that a bit bigger. There you go. Go and give the guy a follow. What an absolute fascinating insight into what happened at the BBC. So they've got a kid whose dad is in the Hamas government. He seems connected to a Hamas founder. And his uncle works for an NGO, which is an activist in an NGO paid position to push Hamas propaganda. And the BBC spent weeks with this kid to put together an hour's documentary telling us how bad Gaza is. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit subscribe and the notification button. Put your comments below, please. They're always good value. Go and give David a follow on Twitter. But the most important thing of all, as long as you're not the type of person that pushes propaganda, pretends you're not, and gets caught doing it, not you, but
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.